McKinney Boyd Broncos get their second win of the year, second straight win, in fact, a blowout win over Rockwall. I'm joined by Don Drake. You have to be happy with your team's performance. Really, from start to finish, there were no holes in your game.
No, I thought the kids played really well. I told them this was the first game that I felt like we started fast in all phases of the game. In previous weeks, we've played really well defensively early. Offense has been sluggish to start. This week I felt like defensively we were playing well, offensively we were playing well, and we were able to capitalize on some turnovers that we created on the defensive side and score points off of them, which we haven't done a really good job of that in previous weeks. And so when you put all those things together, you've got a formula for success.
Well, let's take a look at that fast start early on with your team. It's the defense setting things up for the offense. You get Rockwall driving into your territory, and then a nice interception right here.
Yeah, Dalen Markham did a great job of picking the ball off right there, and then our first play from scrimmage, Brian goes 72 yards for a touchdown, so that's always a great thing to have happen for you in your first possession of the game. So it was nice to get the turnover and, like I said, score points off of it.
Can't really beat scoring on your first play from scrimmage, and then going to cause a fumble from the quarterback on the run, and that's going to set up a field goal later.
Yeah, we got another turnover in our territory. We took the ball, drove it down the field. We had a mishap with our snap on their end of the field, and ended up putting us in some pretty bad, second and long situation. We ended up moving the ball down a little bit, getting in field goal range, and Jared did a great job of connecting on the long field goal.
There he does connect on the field goal, so you're up 10-0. Everything's really running well for you offensively and defensively, and Taylor Fan right here, after the strip, is going to pick up the ball, and he's going to score.
Yeah, and that was exciting. It was that point where, again, you've got another turnover on their third consecutive possession, and we turned that one into points. And, from a defensive side, you don't get a whole lot of defensive scores typically in a football game, so it was great to see Taylor scoop that ball up and take it to the end zone.
Really just playmakers all over the field on defense in this game. Who are some of the players that you felt in your mind really stepped up in this one?
I thought Chris Stanton, our senior corner, had an outstanding game. Thought it was the best game he's played all year. He caused a couple of fumbles himself, did a great job in coverage for us, so I thought he played really, really well on the defensive side. Dedrick Scrivens, who you see right there on the swing pass, I thought Dedrick had a great game for us. I think 6 receptions for 96 yards, and also had some carries that he had some production out of as well from the backfield. So I was really proud of Dedrick and him stepping up his game Friday night.
Curtis Ladd was really able to spread the ball out to all of his different receivers in this game. Dedrick got the bulk of the receptions, but you had several receivers getting catches. Really, just on all aspects of offense, it was a pretty dominant game.
It was, and special teams came up big again this week. We had a punt return for a touchdown this week, as you see there, as Brian takes it back down the field for a score. So, that's 2 consecutive weeks where we've had big plays out of our special teams, and that's very, very important as well.
I feel like every week we obviously talk about Brian Driscoll because he's a special player, and then this one, have to give him credit again, over 200 yards rushing on 13 carries, and also credit that offensive line. Rockwall never was really able to get, too close in the backfield of Brian.
No, our offensive line did a great job of execution. I told our kids this week offensively that, we made the fewest mistakes that we've made all year Friday night. I can only think of a couple of situations where we had poor execution. So when you do that up front, you execute well, you're going to create some running lanes for your running back, and then we let him do what he does best, which is make people miss and score touchdowns.
You're up 38-0 at halftime against a team in Rockwall that's not really a slouch of a team. They've had a good history of making playoffs and beating some quality opponents. You're able to really take it to them.
Yeah, and coming into the football game, I expected it to be a very, very competitive game, and I think it's one of those things where they turned the football over. Unfortunately for us, we were able to turn it into points, and the game got away from them pretty quickly. And that's the thing that we have not done in previous weeks when we've had those opportunities to put points on the board after turnovers. We've not done that, and we did that on Friday, and it helped give us an early lead, which obviously gives us momentum headed into the rest of the ball game.
You put in the subs in the second half, and they still do their job. You're able to increase your lead at the end of the third quarter to 44-0. Give up one touchdown on a big run in the fourth quarter, but overall, even when you put the second string guys in, they're still able to make those plays.
They were, and that's something that we emphasize with them is that when you get your opportunity, you've got to make the most of it. It was a great run there by Calvin Howard. Unfortunately, he got called back for a holding call, but he was able to punch it in the end zone a little bit later. But yeah, our kids that are in those reserve roles, I thought came in and they played hard and they played well, and I was really happy about them having the opportunity to be able to go compete.
So after a couple tough games to start the year, you're now 2-2 after 2 consecutive wins. What is now the mindset of your team? They probably were down after the first couple of games, and they probably now have had their spirits picked up a little bit.
Well, winning obviously builds some momentum, but you've got to keep things in perspective. We talk a lot about why you win, and why you don't win. And we talk a lot about how that has to do with us and our performance, not so much who we're playing. And our kids have just got to continue to focus on getting better as individual football players, and obviously collectively as a team. We've got to continue to improve because we know, our schedule's tough from here going forward, just like it has been in previous weeks. And when we go and play well, we give ourselves the opportunity to win on the scoreboard. And when we don't execute and we don't play well, it hasn't fared so well for us. So, we've got to continue to focus on getting better and making sure we improve our performance and bring our best every Friday night.
Your last non-district game is coming up this Friday against Lewisville. And the Farmers can put up a lot of points, but what are your team's game plan coming into this game against Lewisville?
Well, they've got 2 solid running backs in the backfield, so we've got to do a good job of containing their running game. Again, not giving up any big plays in the passing game. If you can contain the run and not give up the explosive play in the passing game, then you feel like you've got a chance to be pretty successful on the defensive side. Offensively, we know we have to be able to establish the run. I've said every week that we've got to be able to make some plays in the passing game, which I thought we did a good job of last week as a whole. And so we've got to continue just to make positive strides in those areas and eliminate the mental mistakes and making sure our execution is where it needs to be so that we give ourselves the best chance to be successful.
Now, I'm sure the other teams in your district are, trying to keep an eye on you guys, seeing, what has McKinney Boyd been up to in this non-district as they try to prepare for your team. What sort of message has this last couple of games sent to the other teams as they now see how well your team is starting to perform?
Well, I don't know. We do the same thing. We watch scores. The thing that's so hard is you don't really have a comparison, unless you've played a similar opponent or you've played the same opponent. It's really hard to figure out where everybody is at this point, So I'm sure when they look at those scores, like the one from Friday night, you have to step back and say, wow, they must be playing pretty well at this point. But at the same time, it's really hard to gauge until you've lined up against that same team. Much the same for us when we look at the scores from Plano West and Plano East, et cetera. So, we can't focus a whole lot on that right now. We've got our mindset on Lewisville High. We talk to the kids about getting better every week and climbing that mountain of success, and we don't need any valleys along the way. And so, as long as we'll keep our eyes focused on who we've got that particular week, and what we need to do to improve, what we need to do to be successful in them, then I think the rest of that will take care of itself.
I wanted to ask you sort of the question of the day. I've asked it both to Jeff Smith and Mike Fetchie so far. Obviously big night last night on Monday Night Football. All this stuff about the replacement referees and how good they're going to do, and there's a play at the end of the game where it's very controversial. Did they make the right decision or not? In high school football, you're going to deal with refs that sometimes, you're going to agree, sometimes you're not going to agree with the calls that they make. And, your players obviously take everything, in the heat of the moment. You're going to be frustrated with those calls. What do you tell your players, when you have to deal with, referees that are human?
Well, I think you have to focus on things that you control, not focus on things that are out of your control, And for us, that's us taking care of our execution. That's us blocking and tackling the way that we need to. I think if you look back at any football game, I don't think any one game's ever decided upon one play. Even last night, while it's unfortunate for the Packers in that situation, I'm sure when they go back and evaluate film, there were probably plays that they didn't make or opportunities they didn't take advantage of earlier in the football game that might have adjusted that outcome with or without that poor call. So I think as a coach, you have to emphasize that to your kids. You can't look for places, other places to place blame on why you're not successful. You have to own up to what you control and what you can do And I think when you keep your mindset that way, then you offer yourself the opportunity to continue to improve and hopefully not make those mistakes the next time. You know, I think we live in a society sometimes that likes to point the finger at other people for why they're not successful. And I don't know that that's the right way to do it. I think you got to look at yourself and figure out what can you do to help yourself be successful with or without the aid of others.
You know, I think it's kind of neat that none of you guys were able to converse about what I asked you guys about Monday night, but you all ended up saying pretty much the identical same thing. Talking about how you can't control what other people do, you can only control what you do yourself. And I think you really hit the nail on the head when you're talking about how everyone likes to point the blame and figure out who to blame for a loss or something other than yourself. And I think it's really great that you're teaching these kids whether they go on to compete at the college level of football or they just have a normal job, graduate high school and go on and start living their life. You're teaching them these lessons that are going to stay with them forever.
Well, and you hope so, and that's why we're in this business, is to help build, grow boys into men, help build men of character and men that accept responsibility for their choices and for their actions. And, hopefully we take things like that every day on a daily basis and use those examples to help teach those life lessons.
Well, we look forward to you guys going up against Lewisville on Friday night. Hopefully for McKinney Boyd, they'll improve to 3-2 on the year, and hopefully we won't have any controversial calls that will happen in any of these games to decide it. That will just about do it for today's episode of Sports Talk. We want to once again thank the coaches for stopping by. Reminder of this week's games: North travels to Sherman to open up district play. Boyd travels to Lewisville in the non-district affair. And McKinney will host their toughest test yet, the Raiders of Denton Ryan. We also want to congratulate the North Lady Bulldogs volleyball team on their win Friday against Denison. We'll have more volleyball updates next week when we focus on McKinney High and McKinney Boyd's volleyball teams. Remember, for all of your McKinney ISD athletic news, it's right here on Sports Talk. I'm Tyler Sloan. We'll see you next time.